I'll play the music, and then I'll come in and we'll introduce ourselves, and we'll introduce you, and we'll talk about everything you're doing.
Okay.
Sound good to you?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. You ready, Jacob?
Yep.
All right, in three, two, one, go.
This episode of the Open Micros podcast is brought to you by that dirty motherfucker, BJ DeBlow. He knows exactly what he did. He would have started his own podcast, but he was too chicken shit. So let's start our own, play some music.
Ooh, that music means it is Wednesday night, and my name is Jason Robbins.
They call me Superman. That's Super. Jacob Craig. I should have thought of a funnier quip. That one took too long to get out. But hey, even better than my quips, we have a fantastic guest for you guys tonight because we are getting into the Halloween spirit here at Open Micers. And so we have brought on an actress that you know from the Manos film franchise, which has been featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000, has several installments now. Please welcome Debbie Manos herself, Jackey Neyman Jones, to the program.
Woo-hoo.
How are you doing today, madam?
I'm doing good. Thanks for being patient with me. I saw I'd keep you waiting
Oh,
just
that's
to make it
okay.
more exciting.
You know what? Good things are worth the wait. It's just fine.
Manos Hands of Fate was actually the very first episode of Mystery Science Theater that I ever saw.
Wow.
That
And you
was
watched others after that?
oh yeah, I've been a lifelong fan ever since then. I might still have the VHS tape lying around here somewhere. But that was back in the day, the mid '90s, when if you want you either had to watch Mystery Science Theater when it was on TV, or you went to conventions and you do the whole trading VHS tapes and things like that. And I managed to get my hands on some Mystery Science Theater VHS tapes, and that was one of the very first ones I ever saw. So it's an honor to sit here and talk with you right now.
Well, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the question I wanted to ask you is, what's it like to be in a movie that is considered to be a very bad movie, and then you went, 20 something years without that movie ever doing anything, and then Mystery Science Theater comes along, and now it's a cult classic. Like,
Yeah.
what was your experience with all that?
That suits me perfectly. The Mystery Science Theater fan group they're just my kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
Back in high school in the 70s, my best friend and I were really into Fire Sign Theater, a group of four guys that did albums and just like real clever, real, along that style. And so we drove all our friends nuts because we memorized all their riffs, and we just always had a riff for anything anybody had to say. It just drove people crazy. So I get it. I totally get it. So yeah, 27 years went by. Mystery or Mono's Hands of Fate had its premiere on November 15th, 1966, and none of the cast and crew had really seen the film before that night, with the lights borrowed from the local car dealer scanning the sky in front of the theater. Hal Warren, who created the film, had a red carpet. He had a limousine. Everybody was dressed up. My mom and I spent the whole day in the beauty parlor getting our hair done, or felt like it to a 7 year old. And then we were trapped in the theater with this really awful movie that even a 7 year old recognized as. I mean, I spent most of the film crying because once I saw my mouth open and some horrid voice come out of it, I was mortified. And then everybody was laughing. And So the theater canceled the rest of the 2 week run. It only
Oh,
showed one night, and the entertainment writers for El Paso were all big fans of my dad and the local community theater. So they very mercifully let it let it disappear. But then I grew up, and I always remembered that as the greatest summer of my childhood, spending that time with my dad
mhm.
and being the only kid on set. And I looked for it once I got into high school, and that's pre-internet.
Yeah.
So I started looking for it, and I couldn't find it. University libraries, film libraries, it was gone, and I just gave up. And then 27 years go by. My dad calls me up one Sunday. He'd been watching Mystery Science Theater while taking a nap in his easy chair, and he heard some familiar music, and there he was. He was shocked. So he called me, he told me about it. I called Comedy Central because they had that 800 number down in the corner of their screen.
Mhm.
This is a Sunday afternoon. I had no idea. I was shaking. I just couldn't believe I was this close to that. And some guy in Manhattan at HBO offices answered the phone, and I told him what I was looking for and that my whole family was involved. And I thought he hung up on me because there was this long silence. And then he goes, "Oh my God, are you Debbie?"
Hmm.
I so that was my first experience of knowing that anybody else in the world cared about that movie but me.
So how did they get their hands on the movie? I mean, if it just
Mm.
was just sort of more or less buried, like how did they get their
Yeah.
hands on it?
Well, I understand that that was Frank's job back then, and he'd find these films and he would just watch them by himself and decide which ones to share. And from what I understand, he shared that one. And from talking to Joel, and I've talked to Frank and Trace, and I've talked to all of them. And from what I understand, is that when he showed it to the rest of the group, they all had their own private opinion, but everybody's waiting for somebody else to say something. And nobody did. So it made it on the show. And they were all pretty surprised at at the reception that it got. I mean, Frank described it. He said it's like a train wreck. It's just so horrible, but you just can't look away. And I think that probably describes it really quite well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest though, that is my kind of movie because I'm more likely to watch something that's a 1 out of 10 than a 10 out of 10. Like, because I mean, there's just so much that you can get from that. I mean, trying to understand that director's vision, the natural comedy that comes with kind of being oblivious to what you're trying to make. What I'm curious to know is why you decided after all of those years to create more installments into the franchise yourself.
Because it was just so much fun. I mean, these
Yeah.
people are amazing. I've met the most amazing people through this whole experience over the years. It's crazy. Like just 3 months ago, I was at a small convention in Southern Oregon, and I got to meet Cesar Garcia, who was in Breaking Bad and Fast and Furious, and he is this badass guy. What a sweetheart in real life, but he just loved the story, And then Cassandra Peterson, who played Elvira, she showed it on her program once, and we were both guests at Crypticon Seattle a few years ago, and I saw her across the room, and I just wanted to meet her so bad, but she always had this huge long line of people waiting for autographs and photos, and she had this really badass woman sitting next to her that looked like a bodyguard. So, I had to like check it out and see how I was going to approach her. So I walked over and I just kind of snuck up and I darted around the edge of the table and I squatted down next to her. I just started talking real fast. I go, Cassandra, I'm Debbie. I was a little girl in Manos. My dad is the master. That was our dog, the Doberman. I just kept talking, you know. And she looked at me and her eyes, all of a sudden her eyes got really big. And she looks over. In the meantime, out of the corner of my eye, I see this blonde woman like starting to get up out of her chair. I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. And then Cassandra looks at the line and she just goes, stop the line. And then she's like, come here. And she just started peppering me with questions. I just met the most amazing people. I just can't believe who I've met because of this thing. And it's just too much fun. And then the other thing, I would say the main reason I really got into it was that my dad and I weren't really allowed to have a relationship for many years because of his wife. His wife didn't approve of me, and and even though they just lived half a mile away, we weren't really allowed to spend time together.
Wow.
But for some reason, if it was Manos related, she would allow it. So I just kept coming up with things to do, you know. And I would get him over, and we had a neutral territory place, a mutual friend, and we could do interviews from his house, and I just loved it. It's like I loved sharing the stories with my dad, and I loved telling people that the master approved and that I knew that he did because he told me. And it was just really fun. It made our last years together a whole lot more fun.
So what was that like to be a part of this thing when you were a kid, and then you get older and you didn't have any idea that it's like this cult thing? Like you said, you talked to Cassandra Peterson, who, if you don't know who that is, that's Elvira, and the MST3K guys did this movie, and it's like this kind of weird cult movie. Like, was it weird to find that out? Like, what is that like to find out something you did as a kid is now like this cult status thing?
Well, it's been interesting because when I first called for that, when I called the HBO offices and talked to this young man, Matthew, and I told him what I was looking for, and I asked him if there was any way I could get a copy. And he said, yes, I just had it on my desk last week. In fact, that's our favorite bad movie here in the HBO offices.
Wow.
And gosh, I've got it. Oh, look, I have it right here. I want to say so he mailed me a bootleg. He created a VHS copy for me.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And he mailed it to me. And
so you didn't even have a copy of it before then? Like, not even like a film print of it or anything?
Oh no, nothing. I saw it in the theater that night, 1966, and cried my way out of the theater, and we never saw it again, ever.
Wow.
It was gone.
It's crazy
In
how
fact,
things
my
work
dad
out.
didn't even get, my mother made the costumes. She made the master's robe and the wives' dresses, and my dad painted the master and dog painting and Torgo's staff, and Hal Warren, who created the film, he took the painting and the robe home with him. My dad never got that property back. So so since then, I'm an artist too, and my mother taught me how to sew. So I do custom made, signed and numbered master's robes. I'm working on number 26 and number 27 right now.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that you have an Etsy store where you do a lot of Manos merchandise stuff, and it's
I recreated my dad's
really cool.
painting. I did a custom painting for someone, a commission painting. Who a guy asked me if I could paint Frank Zappa as the master with his poodle. And so I did that, and I actually sell prints of that as well.
That's
And I was
awesome.
a huge Zappa fan, so that suits me. But it's just been a blast. I've just enjoyed every step of it, and I have people come to me and apologize that they think it's a bad movie. I'm like, well, of course it's a bad movie. I mean, if it wasn't as bad as it is, then it never would have become what it is.
Well, that's what I was
And
just
so I
about to
say
say. If
it,
it
it,
would if it would have been a good movie, it would have never,
it
you
would
know,
have disappeared like a million other
yeah.
decent movies, right? But no, it's known as it's one of the all-time fan favorites, and it's been voted as fan favorite several times for the Turkey Day Awards.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the definitive, to me at least, and to a lot of Misty's MST3K fans. That's one of the definitive Mystery Science Theater 3000 movies, like episodes to watch. Is like if
Yeah.
you have somebody that has never seen it, like, okay, you're gonna watch this episode, and this is what it's about here, and it's perfect.
Well, and then I have people go, well, it's not the worst movie. I go, of course it's not. I mean, of course it's not. There are so many really horrible, horrible film out there. I'm just so honored that it's loved the way that it is.
Yeah.
But since the beginning, when I got this, I had a 3-year-old son and was living in Northern California. And so when this thing came in the mail, I went and I watched it by myself, and I was happy. I was like, my quest is done. I got what I wanted, and I put it away, and I was happy. And then it started taking off, and it continued to take off, and every time it would reach a plateau, it would get this all this stuff, and then somebody would create a project around it. I mean, there's been a stage production in Portland, there's puppet theater, there's comic books, um, there's so many different projects created, like really talented projects. And every time it would reach a plateau, I would think it was over, and I've always been happy. It reaches that place, and it's always more than I ever could have expected. But then here we are. This November, it will be 55 years since
Wow.
it premiered. And here it is. It's going again. There's so many
Yeah.
projects.
Well, I think it's just going to be one of those things that as people grow up and discover, it, and mainly, I mean, because Mystery Science Theater, found that movie and put it back out there. It's going to be one of those things where I think the younger generation, like parents who watched it on Mystery Science Theater or Elvira or whatever, are going to be like, hey, you need to watch this, and then the kids are going to
Yeah.
get into it, and then their kids, and it's just going to keep going.
I keep hearing stories from people. Several years ago, I was at a Comic-Con convention as a guest, and the man I was dating was there with me, and he was having so much fun. He liked watching the crowd for people that were standing back, wanting that were shy. And the one I remember in particular, this young woman who was probably like 22, 23 years old, was standing back, and he saw her. She was looking at me, and then she's looking at the banner over my head, which is a picture of me, at the end scene as a 7-year-old wife of the master. So she's looking at my 7-year-old face, and she's looking at me, and I go, yeah, it's me. And then he says, do you want to meet her? And this young woman, she burst into tears. I had to go hug her, like, it's okay, honey, it's okay. Don't be, it's okay. It just astounds me.
So do you enjoy doing conventions and things like that? Have you gotten to do any conventions over the last year or so?
Well, just Meadowlark, the one in Medford, Oregon, this year. But next year, this coming weekend, next year, middle October, I'll be going to Illinois to DeadCon. I'll be a guest.
Awesome.
But when I was at Meadowlark this year, after meeting Cesar Garcia, I talked to his agent before we left the show and asked her if she'd be interested in being my booking agent, and she said yes. And then I went home and I looked her up and realized, wow, I mean, she's representing some pretty big people. So I'm really quite honored. So I expect to. She asked if I had my passport because she's getting into Europe now. In fact, I think she's on her way to Amsterdam right now.
Amsterdam
So I
would be
expect to be
nice.
doing a lot more traveling coming up.
Well, I know some of the people that run Pensacon. I think it would be very interesting if we got you down to Pensacon one of these years and do a showing.
Yeah, I was actually going to be a guest this year, but everything just kind of went wonky. But
Yeah,
but they want me at Pensacon, so yeah, you put in a word for me, they'll have me. They'll have me
absolutely.
there.
Yeah,
I
we
think
should.
we should do a showing of Manos and
Yeah.
have you there. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, we can show Manos Returns too. My
Yes,
film,
all of them.
all of them. Well, that's a lot. We would just take over the show if we did all of them.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, and I have to say, I wrote a book about it. I wrote my book
Yes.
Growing Up with Manos, a Hands of Fate. And Joel Hodgson, the host of MST, wrote the foreword to it. So I'm very honored about that.
That's great.
And I'm very proud to say it's 4.5 stars on Amazon. So I wrote a very good book about a really bad movie.
Awesome. I'm gonna put these links, your Etsy store, and a link to your book,
Yeah.
"Growing Up
Thank you.
Manos," "Growing Up with Manos: The Hands of Fate" on Amazon. I'll put those links in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, go check out the show notes and follow those links and see if you'd like to spend some money.
And on my Etsy site, I do autographed and personalized copies as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, another question that I had, because I mean, you do Manos when you're a child. Obviously, you have, your whole life ahead of you. You have to grow up before you even consider, do I want to be an actor? Do I not want to be an actor? But I'm curious to know, like, if at any point in your career did you kind of get disenchanted with acting or with Hollywood, or did you kind of always know that you wanted to revisit that world?
Well, I grew up in theater. In fact, this interesting side note is my dad was very involved in theater. He was executive director of the El Paso Boys Club at the time as his regular job, but later he became executive director of the local theater. And during those years, he always played the lead role. So all the male actors from Manos came from King Henry IV, and my dad played King Henry, and that play had been just a couple months before Manos was cast. So John Reynolds, who played Torgo, Brian Jennings, who played the sheriff, pretty much all the men. Hal Warren they were all in this play. So Hal Warren looked around and he saw everything he needed for his script. But what I think is really funny is that my dad won Best Actor of the Year award for 1966 for the role of King Henry IV. In fact, he won Best Actor of the Year award 3 times during his years in El Paso. But I loved the theater. That's how I learned to read, was running lines for my dad when I was a child. And his art, he worked in clay and metal, welding. He did wood. He worked in all mediums, and I spent so much of my time just hanging out and watching him, or or you know, running around the theater. So that was in my blood. It was what I had to be. I've been a self-employed artist my whole life.
So, when it comes to the original movie, where did your dad like get? Where did he get the money and the equipment and everything to actually make the movie? Was it all self-funded by him, or did he have investors?
No, this was not his movie, his idea. It was Hal Warren, who played Michael, who played my father in the film. He he wrote it, he directed it, he starred in it, and it was his money. It was $19,000,
That was a lot of
and
money for 1966, though.
yeah, and still not much money,
Yeah,
But it was filmed in like 8 days, a couple weekends and some nights.
yeah.
It was done very, very quickly. And yeah, so Hal Warren apparently, he had some ties with Hollywood, with Los Angeles, and he had met Sterling Siliphant, who is the writer for In the Heat of the Night. And the story goes that he was having lunch with Sterling Siliphant, and they were discussing movie making, and Hal Warren made a comment like, um, anybody can make a movie. I can make a movie. And then he wrote some idea down on a cocktail napkin. And that's apparently where the whole idea started, was on a bet.
Oh, wow.
I bet a lot of
From a
movies start that way, though.
I bet a
Maybe,
lot
yeah.
of movies do too.
Speaking of movies, you actually have a forthcoming movie coming out November 1st. Am I correct in saying that? Yes.
We'll see. I mean,
We'll see.
well, it's going to take a little longer. Things just always seem to take longer. But yeah, we filmed the pilot episode for what we hope to be a web series, and it was previously it was called the Debbie Chronicles,
Okay.
but now we're changing it to the Manos Chronicles, so that we can build a bigger group of actors, just a bigger direction. But basically, the story is it's my story of escaping the Valley Lodge as a child, and then growing up, and now I'm battling supernatural evil in the world.
Wow.
But then
That's
my film Manos Returns is a whole nother Manos universe.
Well, if you ever need
it's
any
also-
featured extras, I'm sure me and Jacob would take a drive.
Oh,
to
there
be-
you
yeah,
go.
why not?
And you're where? Where are you?
We're on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Okay. Well, this is being filmed in Yosemite, California, so that's not a bad place to go.
Now we'll do a little road trip.
Have a little vacation, do some
Yeah.
comedy while we're out there.
Yeah, we can
Get
do
famous
comedy.
real quick.
Well, remind me, yeah.
Absolutely.
Jason can actually act. I can act like I can act.
But yeah, you were talking about there are a lot of bad movies out there, and yes, I made a short film a few years ago, and went around and put it in a lot of festivals. So I got to go to a lot of film festivals for a year and a half, and there's a lot of bad movies I had to sit through at those festivals.
And here's something else is I was in another movie in high school because I was very active in my high school theater. We had a wonderful drama teacher. His name was Tim Tackett, and he was a 5th-degree black belt in karate, and he had trained with Bruce Lee. He was a cool guy, and he started every acting class with Tai Chi, so that we would get into the spirit of it,
That's not
And
a
I
bad
got to
idea. I've
see-
never had an acting class do that. Like kind
Oh,
of
isn't that cool?
relax you and get you into the into the zone. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
So he had me as a senior in high school. I got to be the first senior in that high school to direct the annual high school play, and I directed Zoo Story. And so during my time with him, he knew other people in Los Angeles, and he knew a guy who had found a partially finished film from the late 50s. I think it had been started in the 50s and then put aside. It's a Bigfoot movie. And so this guy wanted to finish the movie, and he needed a high school classroom scene. So he came to our high school on a Saturday afternoon, and our drama class came into the school, and we just did this one classroom scene. And the movie is called The Curse of Bigfoot, and it is way worse than Monos. So I was
I
in
was
a
gonna
movie
say
way worse.
that sounds like a Mystery Science Theater worthy movie
They
right
did
there.
it. Actually, I can't remember now. It was either, I think maybe it was Riff Tracks that did
Oh
The
yeah,
Curse of
yeah,
Bigfoot. But look that one up. You can't watch it. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen the whole movie. It's just
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, no one's ever actually seen a whole episode of this podcast either. So I
yeah.
mean,
Let
we're we're
Yep.
all in the
me
right place.
challenge you on that.
Yeah, it was Rift Tracks did it, and actually, it's the first thing that came up on Google. I put in
Oh,
"Curse of Bigfoot movie Rift Tracks," and it brings you the YouTube video is right there.
yeah, and then when you see the classroom scene, and if you can identify me, it's 1976, so my hair is very thick. I have thick bangs. I'm hiding behind my hair, but the kid sitting next to me with the big thick glasses and the curly hair, his name was David, and he was actually one of the kids from the Bad News Bears.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
And then he came into our high school, and he never let us forget that he was in the Bad News Bears. But he was in the Curse of Bigfoot too.
I
But
mean, I probably would have done the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah, well, when you're 16.
Well, I hate to do this. We'll have to have you back on the show again. I hate to cut it short, but we got a late start tonight, and
Yeah.
I have another show to do coming up here in just a little bit. But right now, you can watch Manos Returns, manosreturns.com. You can get the movie, you get the deluxe edition DVD. Let's see, what else is all on here? It's a sequel to the classic Manos Hands of Fate. And just go to manosreturns.com. Of course, the Etsy store she has, which is etsy.com/shop/Jackey S. Manos. And of course, the book, Growing Up with Manos Hands of Fate, is on Amazon. So I'm going to put all these links into the show notes. And it's been absolutely an honor to talk to you. And thank you so much for gracing us with your presence on our stupid little podcast here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And there's definitely a lot more coming down the line. So I would love to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, if I could go back in time to like 1995 and tell my high school self watching Mystery Science Theater 3000, going, see that little girl in that movie? You're going to talk to her on a podcast one day. First thing I would say is, what's a podcast? And then I would say,
Yeah.
there's no way in the world I'm going to do that. But thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been an absolute honor to have you here. And I will talk to the guys at Pensacon too, because we
Yes,
got to have you here. I want to meet you in person, and I
that
want to
would be
sit
fun.
and watch those movies with you in a theater.
Okay,
But
I'm down with that.
is there anything you want to tell the people before we leave here tonight?
No, I'm just happy to be here. I'm glad I made it, and I look forward to the next time. And I do hope I can get to Pensacon.
Yes. Jacob,
Absolutely.
anything you want to throw out there before we leave tonight?
Yes, just thank you so much for coming on, Miss Jones. Lovely to have you here. If you guys want to see me do some stand-up, you can come every Tuesday night on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, the Juke Joint at 8 p.m. in Ocean Springs. And I will be opening for Mo Alexander November 19th at the same place. Get your tickets at landmassentertainment.com. Not going to want to miss that show. And yeah, that's it.
And I got nothing. Just follow me at JFunktastic on Twitter. I'll let you know what I'm doing over there. But yeah, if you would like to email us, you can email us at openmicerspodcast@gmail.com. Openmicers.com takes you to our Patreon where you can support the show, keep the lights on, and, help us out over there. And go to tpublic.com/openmicers and buy some t-shirts. And we will see you guys next Tuesday. Wednesday, not Tuesday, Wednesday. One of these days, I'm going to get that right.
No, you're not, buddy.
No, I'm not. But thank you so much again, Jackey, for hanging out with us. It has been really awesome. So thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end the stream. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I will be back in like 20 minutes for Nerd Cave Retro.